first spiritual sense. John chapter 13 verse 1 to 3. First spiritual sense. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father. First thing to underline. Please go back, please. Underline knew. Jesus did what? Knew. Alright, go on. That his hour had come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father. Having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. And Jesus, knowing, underline that, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God. There are three knowings here. Jesus knowing, number one, the Father has given all things into his hands. Jesus knowing that he was come from God. Number three, Jesus knowing that he went to God. First spiritual sense is called the knowing of revelation. Is that knowing that you know that you don't know how you know, but you yet know? It's a revelation. The knowing of revelation. This is the strongest sense on your receptacle. 70% of the communications of God. You are not with me. You are not with me. You are not with me. Now listen to me. Listen carefully. Listen carefully. I can't repeat myself. We are not talking about the gifts of the Spirit. We are talking about, we are not saying, do you have the gift of the Spirit? No. We are saying, do you have the Spirit? If you have the Spirit, this is your portion. I wish that all the Lord's children were prophets, and that he would put what? Did he say gift of the, you put his. So understand that. Please help me preach to your neighbor quickly. We are not talking about the gift of the Spirit. We are talking about the presence of the Spirit. The knowing of revelation is your first spiritual sense. 70% of God's dealings will come through that platform. It is, are you with me? It's part of what we call God's non-cognitive communication. And if you are going to be an accurate prophet, you must perfect the non-cognitive communication first before you can now walk in the cognitive communication. You must know how God communicates to you and leaves your mind at home. And you can follow with your heart until your heart becomes the organ that is ahead of your thinking, your mind. That's what makes a spiritual man. There's a shift that will take place that will put God's operation in your heart ahead of your mind. So when you have heard God, that you can now strategize. Don't start strategizing anything if you have not heard God. That which is born of what? The flesh is. Remember that. Do you know that many times the difference between life and death is a knowing? You need to know when to sit, when to stand, when to walk away, and when to run. You need to know when to board a flight and when to allow the flight to go, even though you have a valid ticket on business class. The knowing of revelation. Many times my life has been spared just by a knowing, and it's something that you can readily despise, because it's not a knowing that is apprehensive. It's a quiet knowing. It's a very quiet knowing, and then you now find out that the streams of the Spirit, many times they are on quiet, cool mode. Powerful things, powerful signs in the Spirit. Do you still remember that Elijah's prayer on Carmel, the effect of the prayer was appearing in the canvas of the sky. And when the servant came the seventh time, he saw an insignificant cloud that looked like the hand of a man. So insignificant, something you can despise. But Elijah said, that is the sign that proves that what? There is going to be an abundance of rain. Something very big in physical manifestation will appear in the Spirit like a feather. And if you don't understand the language of the Spirit, you will despise it. It says the things of the kingdom look weak, But that's how power administers its protocol. I tell you today, your spirit, your senses will come alive in the name of Jesus. Many times when you are going through persecution, you will not even understand what is happening without a knowing. If you know, like for Paul in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 2, I guess verse 12, is it 1 verse 12 or 2 verse 12? He said, because of these things I have suffered many afflictions, but I know whom I believed, so his suffering could not bend his mind. The devil is in the business of mind bending, to bring you to a point where you disbelieve the things you believe just because there's a little pressure. You can disbelieve if there's no knowing, but a man that knows is so terrible, so difficult for the devil to deal with, because when you give him 39 strokes of the cane, he will say, behold, I make all things new. Knowing of revelation. Please help me ask your neighbor, what do you know?